Earlier, we shared with you some of the daily work of the NCBA staff in Washington. Also critical is the presence of cattlemen and women themselves calling on senators and congressmen from their home states and pressing for the action on the issues that can make or break a cattle-producing family's livelihood. That's why each year the NCBA Legislative Conference is so important. More on that from Cattleman and Cattleman reporter Matt Fleck.
Each year, hundreds of cattle producers from across the country travel to Washington, D.C. to make sure their voices are heard by decision makers in our nation's capital. Attendees of NCBA's legislative conference get a chance to meet with elected officials and discuss the hottest issues affecting the cattle industry.
The Spring Legislative Conference here in Washington, D.C. is all about cattlemen and cattlewomen from across the country really coming to Capitol Hill to engage with lawmakers and really to be able to tell their story of what's important to them and why that really matters to the business environment that they want back home.
It brings our producers from the grassroots level to Washington, D.C. We endeavor to get them to go and talk face to face with their representatives so that they have an opportunity to express their opinions.
I think that it's critical that our decision makers understand that we're engaged, that our farmers from one end of North Carolina to the other are cognizant of what's going on in Congress.
The legislative conference is sponsored by Elanco and gives cattlemen and women an opportunity to share their personal stories of life on the ranch with members of Congress. The lawmakers and their staff welcome this chance to hear how their decisions impact ranchers nationwide.
We work for the folks back home, and when they make the time and expend the effort to come to Washington to make a case for something, it's a great opportunity for us to hear what folks on the ground are thinking and what they need.
Our delegation has been very receptive of those visits, and not that we would agree on all issues by any means, but they've been very receptive to hear our opinion and ours of theirs.
We're glad they're here, and it makes a real difference. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've relied personally on a story that someone shared with me in a speech I've given or in an issue we're facing, because I can remember a good story someone told me about the challenges they're facing.
The great part about our legislative conference is that for weeks after we're done, we will see members of Congress and their staff in the hall, and they'll say, "Hey, I saw your guys when they were in town." Or we saw the cowboy hats. They know that the cattle producers are in town. They know that NCBA is in town, and that is a great image to leave these members of Congress with. So it has a huge impact.
Meeting with elected officials is just one part of the event. Many attendees also visit the federal agencies responsible for regulating how ranchers do business on a daily basis.
We also take time to meet with agency representatives from all the agencies that affect the beef cattle, but especially USDA, Department of Interior, and let them know how their policies and their staff back in the states can function better to help us with our businesses.
It helps them understand the agencies. The agencies see the producers, that they're actually influencing and having an impact on their lives, and it makes a more personal touch.
A strong showing of producers in Washington, D.C. is vital to the success of the cattle industry. It's critical that lawmakers and regulators hear firsthand how their decisions can impact the bottom line of the nation's cattlemen.
It's so easy when we're at home to just kind of get locked in our own world and think that we control our destiny in this, and that's not the case at all, and I think you realize that when you're here.
Bringing the message here to the halls of Congress, I think, is critically important to what goes on the farm every day. And I think when we leave, they've heard us, and I think that's important.
Reporting from Washington, I'm Matt Fleck for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.